New highs have been achieved for everyone's favorite, most obsessed over chart in the whole crypto sphere, that being the Global Liquidity Index. However, I do look at a few new unique things and some compelling evidence of how the greater picture is evolving. However, on the short term or short and medium term here, still looking at Bitcoin as overall range bound at best. Anyways, before we get into it, it is actually the 7-year anniversary of this channel. We're having a sale as always. It's crazy to me that this channel has been alive for 7 years. It feels like, I was thinking about this more, it's like 2 or 3 years. It feels like it's just yesterday that I started it. Awesome stuff. Of course, as always, you can get a nice sale price during these times with the code year7 in all capitals, year7, because it is actually 7 years. And that'll award you 20% off of any one of the programs or services that we have. In fact, on top of that, as we have been rolling out kind of quietly over the past couple of days, we also are offering the first month free for any one of our monthly subscriptions, which is the Quant Prime AI service, which allows you to create, test, and automate your trades, of course. And if we go into it here, the quantum wave bands are also going to allow you for 30 days free, and the Crown VMP as well. So you can try these things out, if you desire. I would say it would be best, if you had your own ideas before going into Quant Prime, because, perhaps you could make that actually work for yourself. But the indicators, they're there to give you an idea of what to expect with those indicators. So yeah, there you go. The code for that, by the way, is trial, TRIAL in all capitals. I'll just write it out here really, really quickly. Trial in all capitals, and you can just find whatever you like in the Teachable School in the link in the description below. All right, sweet. Enough shilling for one moment, and let's get into the chart that seems to continue to be the most talked about chart in the crypto sphere, popularized by Raoul Pal. This is the Global Liquidity Index, and the idea is that global liquidity essentially mirrors, or price actually mirrors, global liquidity, if you're talking about cause and effect there. And with this new week's open, we actually see that global liquidity has made a new all-time high, even higher than what we saw back from September of 2024. And so I look at this as long-term, probably a good signal, probably a good signal for Bitcoin. Does keep the bull hopium, I believe, alive over the long term. Again, very different picture in the short and medium term. I'm not bullish on Bitcoin in the short and medium term. I think it's range bound at best. But, looking at this here, it has been very, very consistent that whenever we see new highs with global liquidity, we also see new highs a little bit later, typically on price action. So I do think that deserves some recognition. And then, of course, we also identified this setup right here, which I actually don't apparently have on. Let me just pop it on right there, with the global liquidity, where we just simply opened up a long trade on this, on this study here. Anytime the global liquidity index had reclaimed that blue moving average, which is just a 40 simple, and then closed that long anytime that, it closed below. And it's really only happened a few times in Bitcoin's history. A handful of times. I think about less than 20. If we go over here to the 5-day, this is the one that I like to watch most. Yeah, 25 right here. And, very, very high hit rate, over 70% of the time. Just playing that out blindly has been profitable. But I should also, know, look, if you have half a fucking brain, you can probably optimize it significantly better than that. But again, this would obviously continue to be open as of right now, because that global liquidity index is continuing to be above that blue moving average. So again, long term, I think it keeps the bull hopium alive. I think generally that's going to be looked at and perceived as a good thing. And on top of that, we also have a continuation of this meta signal setup that we spoke about. I think this was 2 or 3 days ago. I believe this one went out for free in their Discord, which you can also find a link in the description below. This is the 8-hour time frame. This one fired off at just above $81,000. Target number 1's obviously already been hit. Target number 2 is just below $90,000. That is a 50% probability target to be hit. And personally, I think if Bitcoin were to trade up to that region, just kind of spoiling the rest of the surprise, I think it'd very likely be a sell, to be honest, at least for a bit of a pullback. Same thing with the daily over here as well. We spoke about this one over the past couple days, and this one fired off at 84,300, and target number 1 is actually above 88,000. So I'd look for anywhere between like 88 to 90,000 bucks if Bitcoin does bounce sometime this week, but I don't think we're going to be seeing much above there, if at all. assuming that even happens to begin with. But target number one generally has a very, very high probability for these meta signal setups, around about 70%. So, or very, very high 60s. So, generally long term, better off betting at least to reach, a price pivot like that. And this would actually be a perfect retest of something that we'll speak about a little bit later. But while we're on the bull hopium train, I want to leave you with one last thing. This is actually, in my opinion, the most important thing and the most compelling thing for Bitcoin, maintaining the bull hopium. And it would be this, the stablecoin dominance chart. So I'm looking at Tether dominance plus USDC dominance. Realistically, it's about the same chart as what we see for just Tether dominance. But what have we seen in the past week? We actually saw a rejection on a lower high below the 200 simple. So a rejection of that white moving average, which is the 200 simple. And this is also going to have potential for hidden bearish divergence upon confirmation of this current, rejection forming a local high. You can see that it made a slightly higher high on the weekly RSI compared to a lower high in price action. That is divergence by the very definition of it. And in this case, kind of have to be looking for a bit of a pullback if that does play out. A couple ways that this could really be confirmed and make me very confident that we will see another swing to the downside on this chart, which very likely does very well for the girth of this crypto sector. The girthiness of it, yes. But my point is that if you are a little bit more aggressive, well, you saw a doji dildo right here on a rejection of a major moving average. Could you front run that as a local high? Aggressive people will. In my opinion, I'd still want to see daily closures below about 520. It got quite close there, but that would be your sort of traditional way of confirming this as a local high, thus a lower high, thus hidden bearish divergence confirmed, and at least coming back down to the middle of the range at about 4.5%, maybe even all the way back down to the lows that we saw from late 2024. Would that coincide with Bitcoin rallying to new highs? I would imagine so. But one thing before the next, and I wouldn't really be expecting Bitcoin to make new highs unless if it's really below like 4.5%. You could easily have a pullback there, put in a higher low, and then complete the reversal. But I do think that next move is likely down on this chart. Anyways, moving on from there. I made a note here. I want to reiterate my bearish bias though, at least in the short and medium term, as long as this condition here is not met. And that is just really, really simply put, as long as Bitcoin's below the March highs, which is about $95,000, I'm not looking at any sort of real price action to the upside as like threatening, an actual breakout and return above $100,000. That is the most obvious area, at least in my opinion, to be getting bullish on. And if Bitcoin could trade above this high, or especially close above this high, that would do it for me. However, in the short term, I do want to once again show that the 4-hour time frame has been getting all of the highs of Bitcoin's failed rallies since basically the beginning of February. So a little over a month now, about a month and a half almost, along the 4-hour time frame. 200 simple moving average, which is this white moving average right here. You can see all of these rejections were essentially the highs of Bitcoin's rally. Tried to get over there as well in early March, didn't quite get it, but we could count that as a rejection as well. And as of the current moment, that is actually coming down somewhat aggressively, currently at about 89,600, 89,700. Obviously, as time transpires, this will be dragged down a little bit more, but I would look for any sort of rally up to this region as, likely a sell again, at least for a bit of a pullback, because, that has been working out quite well right here. And on top of that, that would essentially fulfill our target number one for the daily setup and target number two for the 8-hour setup that we went over earlier. So, Bitcoin could easily rally up there, still reject and come back down, and that would just be another lower high. That is quite concerning. Of course, we could also look at the weekly HPDR for the overall ranges. It's been working really, really well, especially in the past few weeks. And we can see that Bitcoin actually did open above the 61.8 level. So I suspect that this week, a high probability range will be maybe just below the 61.8 level at 80,000 bucks versus the upside at just under 88,000 bucks. Doesn't need to be like super exact, but that does align well with kind of what we've been looking at just in general on this channel for the past week now. Anyways, speaking of the very short term here, I did want to go back to, or whoops, was it this chart? Was it that chart? Yeah, I did want to go back to this. You know, the very short term, in my opinion, is actually like quite difficult here. If I had to call, if you put a gun to my head and said, Crown, figure it the fuck out or die, I'd say, sir, it's just lines on a chart, man. It's not that serious. I would say I do lean towards a test to the downside first, and then a bounce up to that, $88,000 to $90,000 region plus likely a rejection there. But yeah, I would still have to lean towards short-term downside. I'll explain why with the chart in a moment here. But Bitcoin could easily afford another move back down to just below 80,000 bucks, and that would actually fulfill the 3 spike low formation that we'd like to see, especially on major trending lows. So Bitcoin, if you see Bitcoin come down somewhere close to 80,000 bucks, maybe a little bit below 80,000 bucks, and then quickly reverse like within 2 days, that would be confirmation of that, and I would be looking for at least a move towards 88 to 90ish region, potential for an actual reversal at that point if that were to happen first before instead of Bitcoin rallying from here to 88. In my opinion, that's going to be like a very obvious rejection and come back down. That would actually be more bearish to me, to be honest, going up in the short term. Without another test of the downside. But I suppose we'll see. Of course, I have, I want to reiterate what I'm looking for to be blindly bullish. One of the criteria we already went over, Bitcoin back above the early March high at 95,000 bucks. That'd be very good. Another way that I could get very bullish would be if the daily hash ribbons over here printed a blue buy signal. It is continuing to diverge from the signal line. So unfortunately, this won't be firing off a signal anytime soon. Or at least not for now. But until that does happen, I'm not going to be looking for long-term, trading positions, long-term investments, different sort of thing. Bitcoin's come down 30% here. Like, it's not terrible. I mean, it's for a long-term investment, but yeah, I want to see that plus one of two other things, either, Bitcoin above that 95 pivot or actually a major moving average cross here as well. The daily silver cross back to the upside would do it for me. Or if we saw, 3 drives of bullish divergence right now, we still do not have 3 drives. We have 2 drives, which has been propelling this current bounce. It's been a decent bounce, but that's why I really am hesitant to say that I think Bitcoin is going to just shoot up from here. That's why I lean towards the downside in the short term. Some like this, then boom, some like that perhaps. Of course, it should also be known that on the higher term timeframes here, stochastic momentum is continuing, is still against the Boo laws. It is starting to get quite beat up though, I will say. So we are going to see the sort of lower end of these timeframes turn up, I suspect, relatively soon. Here's your daily timeframe will officially turn up today with a close above 80,000 bucks. The 2-day timeframe for CME will also be turning up above 82,800. The 3-day timeframe will it's not turning up right now, but the 3-day time frame will turn up above 85,000 bucks. So it is still down right now. That means the 5-day is down. That means the weekly new open is also down. That means a 10-day is also going to be down. That means the bi-weekly is down, and that means that the monthly is down as well. So still those very high term time frames are agreeing with each other. That tells me it's not a time to be bullish. It's not a time to be, super aggressive with long entries. There is still a lot of risk here. I mean, just the higher term time frames do not agree with this as of right now, meaning to me that if Bitcoin is going to be bullish, we really do expect like a prolonged sideways in the greater range between about 95 to the upside versus basically the lows like mid 70s to the downside for, I would imagine, a while. So yeah, boring is going to be good for the Boo laws here, I suspect. If bear is going to take over, well, I imagine it's going to be swift and decisive. But I am still of the opinion that Bitcoin is probably going to hold the range here and play out tests to both sides of the range, and both of those are going to be trading opportunities rather than investment opportunities. Anyways, yes, we spoke about all of that. I'll end actually on this as well. I've been getting a lot of questions about this, so why the fuck not, man? But the quantum wave bands, which again are available for the first month free, so you can see it like literally in front of your fucking face with that code trial. Well, this one's actually been doing pretty decently, holding the equity curve still. Hold on, holding the equity curve still in an uptrend, despite this past couple of months being, certainly a more difficult time. You would imagine for a relatively short-term time frame scalping strategy, but even during this, it's actually been pulling in its own wins. They've been, they are scalping trades, so they are on the smaller side, but that's the purpose of this one. So yeah, anyways, if that's of interest to you, again, it's in the link in the description below. Like I said, for all of these services that we offer, especially with indicators, I think it's really best that we, the most transparent way is just give you the fucking tools and you see if it's relevant to you or not. If you like it, you stay on. If you don't, you don't. Crazy fucking ideas here. Holy shit. Anyways, that's where we'll leave it for today. Let's see how deep into this video are we. A little bit longer than what I probably would have wanted, but that's okay. Anyways, we'll be back on tomorrow with another live stream analysis. Looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing what a lot of these shitcoins are looking like, because I haven't been keeping an eye on them since the last one. So with that said, take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.